The Wen-Mac company started around 1956 and made mostly motorized plastic models of cars, planes, and ships, as well as a few other vehicles. The company's name originated from a contraction of the original partners' names. The Wen was from Adolf Wendland, and the Mac comes from brothers Len and Jack McCroskey. It was in the early 1950s when the McCroskey brothers, who were already in the business of making plastic components for other manufacturers, noticed that most control line and almost ready-to-fly models were aluminum. The brothers felt that these rather expensive models could be made better and cheaper from plastic, and as it happens, they were right. Their early models were good-looking and relatively easy to produce, ergo sold for much less than the aluminum models made by their competitors, and the sales reflected this. The first plane at the start of the business was called the Aeromite, and it was a good seller, eventually making 100,000 units per year. All of the planes in the line came fully assembled and ready to fly, and there were some 10 basic designs at first, but various modifications and different color schemes more than doubled this. Most of the planes were scale models of such favorites as the Cessna 175, Airacobra, and Corsair. Although Adolf Wendland left the company just a few years after it started, the company name was too well established by then to change it, so it was known as Wen-Mac for its entire existence. As it turned out, the real problem was not the models, but the engines. At first, they were using only about 100 engines per week, but soon they were up to 1,000 per day. At the time, they were purchasing engines from 3 different vendors, and both quality and the reliability of delivery were spotty at best. The only long-term solution to this was to make their own engines. For this, they contracted Bill Atwood to design an 049 engine for them. Production and quality control was now under the control of the brothers, and things started going smoothly once it was all in-house. One problem they were quick to get on top of was the starting of these liquid fuel-powered engines. They decided that starting a small engine was a hurdle, and so they put a pull cord starter on them. This was designed for a 4-inch pull, but unfortunately users often yanked it more than a foot or so. Ergo, the Rotomatic spring starter was introduced in 1957. By this time, Wen-Mac had accumulated quite a few firsts in the industry. The first ready-to-fly plastic models, window packaging to better display the model, the first marketable, complete flying kit, bomb dropping, parachute ejection, rocket firing, things like this to keep the kits interesting. For the volume of engines they turned out, quality control at Wen-Mac was excellent. Pistons were held to tolerances of 15 millionths of an inch for size, roundness, and taper. Each machine operator spot checked a certain percentage of the parts produced, and there were several further checks before engine parts and assemblies left the department. Quality was so good because as much as 15% of the engines produced were picked at random and test run as a quality control check. Some of these were run for 8 hours a day for as long as 30 days. As a result, Wen-Mac gave a 3-year guarantee on their engines. Company salesmen offered to take a Wen-Mac engine from the hobby shop shelf and promised to have it running in 15 seconds after it's mounted and fueled, or they'd close their order books and leave. To ensure a successful high-volume production required close control over every manufacturing process, and by doing every job themselves, Wen-Mac had such control. They ground 5,000 engine parts per hour on grinders normally used for precision gauge making. They did their own heat treating and made their own glow plugs. One operator sitting at a rotary table turned these out at an incredible rate of speed. The last step was an electrical and high-pressure air test. Wen-Mac mixed and canned all of its own premium-grade fuel. These ingredients cost more, but it made Wen-Mac engines run better and last longer. In 1959, Wen-Mac sold out to the American Machine and Foundry Company, better known as AMF, but the brothers stayed in charge of the operation. This meant access to larger marketing budgets. As a result, Wen-Mac was well represented in a 1962 episode of the popular TV show My Three Sons, an episode called Air Derby, and eventually Wen-Mac even got its own television advertisements. As of 1964, some 6,000 Wen-Mac products were being produced a day, As a result, Wen-Mac engine types were used in many types of models, yet the parts interchangeability was quite high, and new models tended to include parts from earlier versions until those older versions were used up. Wen-Macs had always been designed for use in control line models, and as a result, many of the engines had seemingly purposeless holes and protrusions that were meant for specific installation purposes on other models. Essentially, no matter what Wen-Mac engine you got, it should fit just about any Wen-Mac model. The molding department used many machines, the largest of which were three 48-ounce spiral feed machines. There were many smaller machines of various types, but both vacuum forming and injection molding were handled in this department. And they used three main materials: high-impact polystyrene, which was employed for most of the parts and came in many bright colors. For clear parts such as canopies, butyrate was used, and nylon was used because of its toughness and its wearing qualities on props and bearings. Metallizing, which was a specialty process in its own right, was handled on the premises in one of the Wen-Mac buildings. This process consists of vaporizing aluminum foil in a large vacuum. For proper adherence and protection, the parts are sprayed with special lacquers before and after the vapor has been deposited. Needless to say, the last coat must be tough and fuel-proof. The aluminum skin is only about 2/10,000ths of an inch thick. The entire building where this was done was slightly pressurized so that any dust in the air would be blown outward towards the doors and crevices. For the sort of high-volume production Wen-Mac did, only the most modern handling methods were to be used. Overhead conveyor lines supplied parts to the assembly area, while moving belts carried models as more and more pieces were added to their assembly. Packaging and sealing were done automatically. Depending on the time of year, the company would employ anywhere from 180 to 450 employees. This was, after all, a somewhat seasonal business. Wen-Mac turned out what were called premiums, or contract items made for various outfits, such as the marine oil tankers which were sold at Texaco gas stations across the United States. They were making as many as 9,000 per day and produced over 1 million a year. The Wen-Mac fire truck engines and other promotional models were over a foot long and mostly made of metal, and went out of the plant at a rate of 10,000 per day. Practically all models, toys, and other items produced in the plant were designed and engineered right there on premises. Now, one exception was the Wen-Mac radio control package, which consisted of a super het receiver and a compact but potent handheld tone transmitter, both of which were all transistorized, which was quite new at the time. These units, which were designed to strict Wen-Mac specifications but produced by Packard Bell, sold in very large volume. There was also a line of space-age toys, which were large units easily assembled without nuts or bolts or screws or rivets. They were made for youngsters aged 4 through 9, but all had moving parts that were powered by electric motors. It won't surprise anyone to learn that Jack and Lynn McCroskey were avid model builders as youngsters, and both of them seemed to get more involved in the sport as they got older. Jack would quite often round up a group of people at the plant and head out to the country for a day of model flying, or as they sometimes referred to it, product research. Although Jack was technically the president and Lynn was technically the chairman of the board, the titles really did not mean anything because they both did whatever needed to be done on any given day. They handled administration, sales, finance, manufacturing, design problems. It was a very flexible arrangement that continued even after they became a division of AMF. But in 1966, AMF sold Wen-Mac to Testors, and after that things seemed to get a bit fuzzy. The name seems to have quietly drifted into obscurity, and I can't really determine exactly what happened to the product line. It looks like they were sold under the Testors Wen-Mac name for a while, but eventually the Wen-Mac name just disappeared. That was about as far as I could track the company. I did find out that Lynn McCroskey passed away in 2004 at the age of 84, and his brother Jack just recently passed away in 2019 at the age of 98. So for all those who grow up with the toys they made, I'd just like to say, thanks guys. You made the world a lot more fun for a lot of kids.
Roger Ramjet here. Take a look at the Lotus Racer in action. It won at Indianapolis. And here's your own gas engine Lotus by AMF Wen-Mac. It has something new. Throttle speed control. Watch. Just rev it up. And look at her go. Lotus by Wen-Mac, the first car you can control from idling to a roaring full speed ahead with throttle speed control. And now, kids, let's take to the air. Hey, kids, see that gas engine airplane? It's the new Boeing P-26 by AMF Wen-Mac. See what he did? That's the new throttle speed control. He can fly it by himself. Just start it, pick up the lines, operate the throttle, and go. But the new throttle control is only on AMF Wen-Mac's Boeing P-26. See the P-26 and Lotus Racer wherever toys are sold. Tell them Roger Ramjet sent you. Roger Ramjet here with a great new toy from the Magic Triangle. Hovercraft by AMF Wen-Mac. Watch the hovercraft. Powered by the famous Wen-Mac Thunderbolt engine. New automatic starter, easy to start and operate. It rises up on a pad of air and skims across the ground. No wheels of any kind. See it glide over lawns, over sidewalks, even over water. You can guide your new hovercraft with a tether or send it around in a circle so it comes right back to you. You'll be amazed at the way it goes around trees and other obstacles. It's the transportation of the future here today. Play with it almost anywhere. Get your new AMF Wen-Mac hovercraft wherever action toys and hobbies are sold. And remember, for fun, for super fun, Magic Triangle toys from AMF. Magic Triangle toys from AMF.